Welcome to the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom, at Dan Tom MMA, analyst you can find on the interwebs. But on this here program, the Dogger Pass podcast, where we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today. Tonight, whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's for the fight in question, of course, going to be UFC Fight Night 267, UFC Houston, UFC Fight Night Strickland versus Hernandez. You know how the UFC does with all these titles. I got to have a co-host to help me unpack these massive cards we get almost from week to week here. Got to bring in my guy, the man at the MadLabMMA.com is where you can find him at MadLabMMA. What's up, Mike?
What's up, man? Good to be back. A little bit of a break, right? We had like a little teaser for about 2-3 weeks, and now we have a break. And now I believe we're like on a run. I don't think we have a break for a while now.
Yeah, right? it's gonna be 9 straight, which it's funny, man. We're coming off of a week off here, and my last 2 wins, Mike, the last 2 times I won a card was like right before a break, so kind of I don't really get to victory lap too much, but I hope that trend breaks because, like you just said, Mike, we're gonna be in for 9 straight here, and we'll be here every week on Wednesdays, of course. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Mike, how was the short week off for you? I don't know about you, man. I'm champing at the bit to get back. How are you feeling over there?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. If those of you that see my face, that's a little red. It's actually not sunburn. I went for my business partner's wife does like skin treatments and stuff, so she gave me a little pico laser on my face. That's why it's a little swollen and red. So it's not sunburn. If it's not my camera, it's just I got a little bit of a redness, which and a little swelling. So if you're looking at it and you're like, what the fuck happened to this guy? That's what happened. But yeah, man, I'm excited, dude. I'm excited to go on this run, bro, because we were, when you come off such a large break and then all of a sudden you get a little dab of like 2 weeks and then all of a sudden they take it away again. I'm happy now that we're on a 9-week run. We get back in a rhythm together again with the show, with our picks, with our analysis. Some great fights coming up. We got good boxing coming up this week too. We got Garcia versus Barrios, which is going to be a fun fight. 2 guys with a bad attitude. And then, like I said, let's get into a rhythm. Let's get some winning weeks. Let's win some people some money, and let's have some fun.
Yeah, man. Speaking of a rhythm, just a real quick touch on last week, and then we'll of course push on to the fight night that we just announced off the top here. But yeah, I think we can get in a good rhythm. Not only did my ass finally get in the win column, I was getting a lot of shit. Although I'd argue actually the analysis and results haven't been bad lately, minus a broken arm and a robbery scorecard. I would have had 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 winning last ones if we do that math. However, officially back in the winning column, and more importantly, Mike, it was a small win, so it's nothing to brag about. But more importantly for the show, we're on the board with our best bet. Of course, our dog of the week dropped out with Saeed Nurmagomedov falling out, right? So we didn't have a chance to hit our dog of the week yet. We'll see if we can get on the board there. I know Dayton is champing at the bit for this show to drop his dog of the week. We'll see if our guy Dayton, shout out to him, always doing a great job, we'll get his on the board. But yeah, our best bet came through with Mario Bautista, Mike. And I'll be honest, maybe it was, MMA gamblers, liking themselves some lock dog, and I like lock dog as well. He's made me money before, but whatever nerves I had, Bautista made it a lot easier than I thought. And that being said, it was our best bet, and it was still easier than I thought. You have any thoughts on that or the card before we push on here, Mike?
Yeah, I do have a couple of thoughts on that fight. And not only was the pick right, but our analysis was spot on, dude, because we said that this fight will be won and lost on the mat if he decides to grapple. And that's exactly what he did. He destroyed him. He really, really put a clinic on him. It didn't even look like they belonged in the same cage together. And it was almost like he listened to our blueprint and ran with it. So that's what I was more impressed about with our analysis. Not so much the pick. That's great. We were on the right side, but the way we broke it down, like we literally broke it down the way it unfolded. So that's good to get on the board. But yeah, I think I have a feeling that we're going to be on the same side. And we haven't talked at all.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Which is not like us. Usually we're on the phone, not even talking about picks, just talking about life or whatever. But I have a feeling we're going to be on the same side of this dog this week, and I think it's probably going to end up being our dog. If I'm going to see how right I am on your wavelength.
I think so too. Yeah,
and I think it's going to hit. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man. My biases, and by the way, Mike, I didn't even notice that skin thing you were talking about because your beautiful hair is showing. I'm like, you wear hair, that's too
Well,
much,
I
man.
can't. You know what it
Your
is?
hair, your hair is still strong, brother. You look good.
Yeah, dude, I got good hair, but the hat irritates it.
Okay, I got you. But yeah, I was not feeling great about this card because of biases, which I always acknowledge and whatnot. And I'm glad you brought up the analysis, Mike. I've been getting a lot of shit saying people, I don't care about your analysis. I'm like, well, that's basically all I offer. So A, that sucks for me. But B, it also sucks because that's where you get the Peter Yan plus 300s. That's where you get the Amasoft by Anaconda plus 4,000s. And even when it's not our best bet, Mike, we're also 2 in a row as far as inklings on what shoulda, coulda, woulda been our best bets, which was Malkoon, right? In Australia a couple weeks ago. And who did we say the Malkoon of the card could have been for last week's card? And I said was a money printer if he's not fighting, ranked opposition. That was Dustin Jacobe. And I think that one came off pretty good too. So I'm glad that you shouted the analysis and it's not me, Mike, because yeah, man, it was spot on. And the reason why we say that Malkoon spot or the Jacobe spot and how that ties into analysis, it's so-called worth, which is subjective. It's up to you. We're not telling you what to do, folks. We're just giving you what we know and what we can offer. But yeah, like when I was listening, there was a lot of people on Finney for Malkoon, and there was a lot of people on Walker Juicebox. And shout out to Juicebox. That was a tough assignment for him. Former training partner, experience difference. I got all love for these guys. Believe me, there's nothing in there. But when I would listen to breakdowns, Mike, and people's picks, it was like age, athleticism, like all the typical stuff. Like there was no actual analysis. So you guys could shit on analysis all you want, but man, if you're hearing analysis backing up a pick and you're hearing analysis not back up a pick, I don't know. That just seems kind of obvious to me. Anybody can win in MMA, but yeah, that's just a real blind spot. I feel like for a lot of people, Mike.
Yeah, well, the good thing is before we jump into this card, the good thing about that is that we actually know that the people do like our analysis, which I appreciate, guys, very much.
Thank you. Yeah,
we actually started doing the 3-minute thing because we didn't think you guys wanted so much. We thought you guys just wanted a pick. And then we got stormed from the gates from people saying, if you do the 3 minutes, we're not going to watch. We want to hear your analysis. So, like, I appreciate that very, very much from an analytical head like myself who watches a lot of film. So like I said, I will try to keep my breakdowns a little bit more consolidated, but I'll still give you as much as I can. But I actually did appreciate them asking to take away the 3-minute stop clock just because it shows that there are people that do listen. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, great point and great shout. And thank you for all our supporters. Obviously, it's so much easier to focus on the negative, right? You'll get like 100 positive comments, but you'll get that one negative comment. You're like, it'll ruin your day. So we're all susceptible to that to some degree. Especially, in this position. So yeah, great shout, Mike. And thank you guys for all the supporters. Like, subscribe, and let's get to it, shall we? Feel free to sound off in the chat as well. And we'll get to those as the show goes on. I got all the Southpaw stats ready for you. No Apex stats. And the cage size was a factor for some of my picks here, Mike. But let's just start at the very top of the card. Of course, this card, UFC Fight Night 267, UFC Houston, is headlined by former champion Sean Strickland versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Hernandez is your favorite, minus 270, with the comeback for Strickland in the neighborhood of plus 230. Over 4.5s in this 5-round fight is set at 155, minus 155. That is under 4.5 rounds, plus a 135. I don't disagree with the totals. I don't even necessarily disagree with the odds. I'm not surprised at who is favored here. No Southpaw stats, no rematch stats for anything of this one. Mike, I want you to take the steering wheel first, though. What is your impression of this fight, and do you at least agree with the numbers or disagree with the numbers? If you want to start from there.
Yeah, well, I disagree with the numbers as far as the minus 270. That's a steep price for a 5-round fight against a guy who has riddles that need to be solved in his own sense, right? When you look at Sean Strickland, he's one of those guys that he's never going to overload you with heavy power, but he knows how to touch you. And even though he doesn't look that voluminous when you're watching him fight, if you look at his numbers, you're like, wow, his numbers, like his significant strikes, they hit a barrier. But just optically, it doesn't look like that because he's not one of those guys that push forward. He does the shoulder roll. He does little things. He's much more of a counter striker. But when he counters, the volume is there. It just doesn't look like it because he's not usually the one kind of really hunting with any kind of like vindictive power. He's just looking to touch you. Mm-hmm. But if you do look at his numbers, like they're there. Like his volume is there. He is a high output striker. he does have a lot of things. And, you hear people say all the time, like, well, he's a really good wrestler. He just doesn't use it that much. Or he's a really good counter wrestler. He doesn't use it that much. And that all may be true. And he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. But, I just keep going back to momentum, and I keep going back to solving a riddle. And it's very hard to pick against Anthony Hernandez right now for one reason, because he doesn't need to succeed in every takedown. He doesn't need to succeed in every shot. He just needs to throw a wrench into the mix with a momentum timing fighter like a Sean Strickland, where he needs to kind of be on the outside. He needs to kind of, counter, fight off the back foot a little bit. But when you're fighting off the back foot against a striker, that's different than fighting off the back foot against a guy who's actually pressing, knows what he's good at. He knows what got him here. If you look at Anthony Hernandez and you look at his takedowns in his fights, 9 takedowns, 4 takedowns, 10 takedowns, 3 takedowns, 6 takedowns, 8 takedowns, 8 takedowns. This is just a repetitive thing that this guy knows. This is my bread and butter. This is how I'm going to win fights. I'm going to put pressure on you. I'm going to close the gap. I'm going to use cardio as a weapon. And if you're going to have to fight your way out of it and create offense in the process, that's my issue with this fight. I just have a feeling Anthony Hernandez is going to be on him like Velcro, whether he succeeds to get the takedowns or, well, he doesn't. The fact of the matter is he's going to be the one optically that's going to be kind of pushing him downhill. And it's going to be Strickland's job to kind of shuck away, move laterally, stay out of range. You're not going to be able to really commit a lot because it's coming. Like, it's going to come eventually. Maybe Hernandez stands up with him for a couple minutes. Maybe he says to him, well, I want to show these people that I'm not just a grappler. I'm not just a guy who's going to grind you. I want to show that I can stand with this guy because he doesn't hit with a lot of pop. But once he starts losing traction with somebody like Strickland, who will beat him in the striking realm if they decide to stay there, he's eventually going to shoot. He's eventually going to go back to what he's good at. And for 25 minutes, Strickland, just to keep him off, it's not like Strickland's a guy that's going to catch you with a step back shot, like a Sam Alvey, someone who doesn't throw anything, but he could step back and catch you with a shot. It's not Strickland's game. Strickland works on volume. And I just don't think the volume is going to be there for him. So for that reason, I feel like I have to pick Anthony Hernandez. But it's a tricky fight. I mean, it is a tricky fight. I mean, if Hernandez decides to try to show something new, show a new wrinkle in his game, it could backfire. But if he goes into this with that same mindset, I'm going to be on you like Velcro, unless he gasses out, which I don't see him gassing out. I think this is his fight to win.
Excellent analysis, excellent reasoning. Just want to shout out my guy MMA Plays in the chat. He's been killing it, supporter of the show, calling it the Long Shot Show as well. Of course, Lazy Bet. He's just like MVP. He's right up there with your Dixon Siders of the world. Lazy Bet MMA is a big MVP in my book of the community. Appreciate the love from him. Grateful Dude, of course, always a good dude in the mentions. What's up, Grateful Dude? We got Big Ed as well. Dev Goes Fishing. All right, what's up, guys? Good to see you. So that was excellent analysis. And Mike, let's keep this momentum of back and forth starting off, because at this rate, you will be kicking off all the fights that I have biases in, which I like, because that we'll get your analysis first there, especially goes well. And obviously, my bias here is on the Sean Strickland side. Again, I'm not a big Sean Strickland fan, right, or anything like that. The bias, he trains at my gym, obviously, is what I'm referring to. And he's going to have my guy, Eric Nixick, who we've had as a guest on this program, friends of the show. What's up, Eric? And he's going to come in with a good game plan, And say what you will about Sean Strickland, and believe me, plenty of the critiques are valid, right? But when you go back and watch the fights, even in these fights he's losing, man, my guy Eric's corner work is just on point, right? And he/my gym has prepared for Fluffy Hernandez. They've had a few swings at bat, and they've also, the MMA Gold team has been kind of a friendly gym with Extreme Couture. So a lot of those guys have come and trained, over at Extreme Couture. A lot of those California contingent, that's where Sean Strickland comes from himself. Him and I think Lorenz Larkin would come over. Speaking of Sam Alvey, Sean used to train with Sam Alvey, and yeah, so I've known. Of who Sean was for a while. In fact, it was funny. This is over a decade ago, Mike. I was on MMA Latest over in the UK, an outlet there, and they had Sam Alvey on, and they had a podcast. So I would occasionally podcast and do stuff with Sam Alvey. And the fighters we got access to were mainly from the Team Quest California gym, Dan Henderson's gym over there in California, Temecula. Mm-hmm. And that's where Sean Strickland came from. And they're like, yo, we're going to get you this young up-and-comer Sean Strickland, but we got to warn you, your kid's got a potty mouth on him, right? Like he's crazy. He's this crazy gun nut and all this So it was funny. Like, I actually got to learn about Sean Strickland before everybody kind of else did, and now that's kind of his gimmick, his performative thing. But I'm like, yeah, this guy's kind of just always been like that. Again, not justifying it, just saying it's funny. Same with Fluffy Hernandez. I interviewed him on MMA Junkie Radio about almost 8 years ago, Mike, and this guy's dropping every kind of F-bomb, not just the F-bomb, right? Both ones, right? And it was just funny. They're just like, his manager was there like giving him crap, like, dude, you got to keep a cap on this, Fluffy. You're going to end up in these main event spots like we're breaking down right now. And it's funny, you look at interviews and he still hasn't made a difference. He's just beep, beep, beep. It's like a Happy Gilmore interview for both these guys right now, which is kind of hilarious. But as far as the fight goes, yeah, I do have the bias on that side. Sean Strickland's going to be well prepared. They're going to look for the body when you go to Hernandez's last fight against Delija. That's what they were calling for. Delija and Strickland are obviously different fighters. But I will say this about Delija. Even though he doesn't have great cardio, I would say he's got good staying power and durability, both with his chin and in the fact that, like, even with that Nasruddin Imavov fight, which was a kind of a bad look for even Imavov in a win, but to Delija's credit, he looked like he was done in round 3, right? And somehow he still pushes through to round 5. So he's got durability and staying power. And I bring that up to talk about, not about Fluffy's spin cycle, wins, wash and repeat, or that he's weak to the body. I saw a funny tweet about that, by the way. And I will say I'm one of the original people who've been saying that, just like many things. They don't get too much credit for, but as far as Fluffy being soft to the body. But what I wanted to highlight, Mike, was his striking. I think his striking's improved, particularly his boxing. And I want to get your opinion on that before we close up shop on this breakdown. But, even though it's, Roman Delija and maybe not the most skilled striker to compare, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at what is Hernandez doing. Maybe the opposition's not great and it's going to work 10x better if the opposition's not great. But still, what is he doing for technique-wise? And dude, his timing change-ups, his 2 coming right behind the 1. It's not a 1-2, it's 1-2, and he's like fitting in. He's right in with the fit-ins. That's why the takedowns he doesn't even have to work that hard for. It was really impressive, and it looked like he almost like pretty much knocked out Delija almost twice in that fight. One of the times he got him like face plant, and like most refs, that'll almost trigger them for a stoppage right there. And I'm leaning toward Hernandez, despite my biases for all the reasons that you gave, Mike. It's going to come down to, pace and grappling. And grappling is something even Sean Strickland himself said he has not really had to face, right? You go back to it, it's down at welterweight, Court McGee and Kamaru Usman, right? Those are like maybe the closest analogs, and you got to go over a decade for those fights, I believe, right? Offhand. But Mike, I guess what I want to ask you is do you think that even if there is striking stances in this fight, maybe Fluffy can do better than some project, or am I seeing too much, making too much out of that Delija fight and his improvements?
No, I think you're right. I think a big key component to fighting is also not showing all your cards, right? Mm-hmm. So, Hernandez could be a better striker than we all really can imagine just even a year ago, but we haven't really needed to see it because a big wiring of his game is use your striking to set up your grappling. Don't overstay your welcome when you have a situation where you can kind of just take advantage of everybody with your pace, your cardio and stuff. Like, why are you going to show that part of your game? Just utilize it to an extent that you want to maybe soften them up or put him in a position where you're setting him up. He's exposing his hips. So yeah, I agree. I think in that fight against Delija, when you're looking at a guy who is let's face it. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like the greatest grappler, but he can grapple. He can grapple. He's dangerous on the ground. And you're looking at a situation where, Fluffy's on him now saying, I'm going to strike with him a little bit too, but then I'll take him down. But I'm going to strike with him a little bit. I'm going to make it a little easier. So yeah, I think it'll never be a Fluffy Hernandez where he's going to stand up for an entire round without shooting. I don't think it's ever going to be a part of his game. But sure. I don't think he showed us all his cards because I don't think he's had to. I think his striking is probably pretty good. But I think if he decided to stay that route, I think Sean Strickland chews him up on the feet. It's just a different. Sure. It's just different. You know what I mean? Yes. It's completely different. That Philly shell and stuff like that. It's not the perfect Philly shell, but it resembles the Philly shell. It's a very hard defense to kind of disrupt, and you really have to know how to strike to do that. And I don't think Hernandez is on that level. But like I said, it's just, listen, I would love to see Strickland win just for the mere fact that I think if he wins this fight, he puts himself in a position for the White House card. And I think that he'd be perfect for that card. Like, let's face it. You know what I mean? If he loses this fight, is he going to get the call to say, let's go, you're going to be on the White House card too? If he's in a war, maybe he'll be on a medical suspension. I don't know. But I just think it's a tough ask, bro. I really do. I don't put it by him. I think he's live. I think Strickland's live in every fight, depending on which Strickland shows up. But, I mean, I think you're throwing darts if you just say you're positive that Strickland's going to win. Like, I just think it's a dart throw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying there. And I like that you mentioned about the shell, by the way. And Hernandez will kind of have a dip off, kind of a crouch style to his boxing, which could get him in trouble with kicks. But Strickland doesn't really throw lead side kicks. He'll throw a lead side teep, right? Those body teeps are going to be his best weapon in this fight. But I don't see him maybe taxing him on the way. And I feel like Hernandez can get his fit-ins to your point. So he doesn't have to stand, because if he does stand the whole round, obviously you got to favor Strickland at that point. But yeah, I think Hernandez can get to his fit-ins. And something I noticed about Strickland, he's got that old school Chuck Liddell mindset where, like, Chuck Liddell as well was an underrated wrestler, right? He actually did wrestle. He was a wrestler and was an accountant, which people forget those two funny things, right? But what Chuck would do is, he knew how to fight hands or cover the head, but especially in that era, you really didn't need to. You kind of just had to have that wrestler's mentality of being able to be comfortable and standing up to your base. And Chuck was at light heavyweight, so unless he ran into Jeremy Horn, who subbed him, you really weren't getting too big of submission threats, especially back then, right? But yeah, like Sean Strickland has that similar attitude, just one weight class down, and he will cover the head, he will fight hands. But the problem is, and I said this about one of the fights last week, I'm not sure which one or how much it came to fruition, but he allowed for too much of that rear waist body lock exposure, right? Even though he's able to get up from there, and that's where he's able to maybe eventually turn in and separate. The fact is, you are comfortable letting somebody in to a position that is Anthony Hernandez's home position, right? He just works guys over from there, and makes their life kind of a living hell. Will enter a spin cycle. So yeah, I'm actually going to go with Hernandez here. The one caveat I will throw, outside of him getting hurt by body work early, which is always on the table, is that he has like Floyd Mayweather hands, so he breaks his hands all the time. That being said, he's broken his hands and as well as had hurt ribs, like in his Brendan Allen fight, and he still won. So, I don't know how much that's on the table then, as far as that goes, but maybe it's just me and my PTSD of being on the wrong end of like 11 out of 10 injuries for the most part. It seems like I always got to put that out there, right? So, Mike, I actually put Hernandez in a parlay, which I know sounds blasphemous, but again, there are people out there that don't even have gym biases, Mike, and they'll like do breakdown shows and stuff. And it's like, it's so obvious who the fighter they either like or that they bet on, right? And those emotions can kind of override the analysis. So I just want to make it a point, and I've done this before, so this isn't that big of a deal, but that, for what it's worth, I can actually give honest analysis. And even though being honest doesn't make you friends, telling the truth don't make you friends. I'm in a comfortable enough relationship. Eric knows my job that, I'm not always going to be picking for our guys, right? I got to try to call balls and strikes as best I can. And I think this is a Hernandez fight, Mike.
Yeah, I want to touch on one thing for the people out there that don't understand what the Philly shell is, right? So, you would think that a lot of more people would use it. There's two defensive that a lot of people don't use that they should use. One of them back in the day was Big George Foreman. Big George Foreman used to kind of shell up like this, full guard, you know what I mean? So you're kind of, the faster guys tend not to do that. Now in like traditional boxing, you're up here, you're up here, you're up here, you're up here. What the Philly shell is, what it does is it forces you to blade off because your shoulders kind of tuck in your chin.
Yep.
So even if you put your arms down when you're bladed off, if somebody's throwing a punch, it's gonna might still hit you on the chin, but you're sliding off the shoulder. You're taking some of that pressure off the shoulder. Then by blading off and adding your hand up here, it's like a windshield wiper. You're blocking shots here, and you're also blocking uppercuts coming up. And all the meanwhile, you have your right hand kind of cocked and ready. So you're boom, and you could just come back and counter. So it's a very, very, very hard defense to penetrate. You know what I mean? And that's why it is. It's economical. It doesn't really require a lot of movement here and here. It's more shoulder taken off, ricochet here and then here, and then here, and then your right hand's always cocked, or your left hand, whatever side you go. So that's why it's such an effective thing. That's why Mayweather was one of the best defensive fighters of all time, because breaking that Philly shell was very hard. So when we say Philly shell, that's what we mean.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's a great point. And that's a funny Freudian slip by Dev Goes Fishing in the chat there. His linear attacks, Sean Strickland's linear attacks, obviously linear attacks can affect pressure, especially with those teeps. That's a big key. So you're absolutely right in that. But I will say part of the boxing improvements I saw of Hernandez, and speaking to that, even though he doesn't do as the same type of shell variation, he has a similar spirit. Hernandez will, and he is pretty good about slipping off to the side and entering off of straight punches. So as good as Sean Strickland does against straight punchers and has weapons for forward pressure, Hernandez, at least from what I saw on the tape, is showing the ability to angle off and attack. So that's gonna be key for him to get in. So great point there to mention. And let's push on, shall we? Of course, we gave the main event decent enough time. It is a top contenders fight. Hernandez, if he wins this one, you got to give him a title shot. But let's go to the co-main event. Co-main events have always been in a funny spot since like the pandemic, in my opinion. Like it's been kind of quietly like weird on fight nights, but they're kind of like just really leaning into the action era. So we're gonna have a southpaw versus southpaw gunfight between Geoff Neal and Uros Medic. Geoff Neal is going to be your favorite, minus 205 with a comeback on Uros to Dr. Medic, plus 175, under 1.5 rounds, minus 195, over 1.5 rounds, plus 170. So I'll start this one off, Mike. I got the southpaw stats in hand. We want to keep that order. That way for the next fight where I really have bias, you can lead off. But yeah, Medic is 1-2 against UFC level lefties for what it's worth. He beat Tim Means, actually really nice. He actually feinted the lead right hand and caught him with a level changing uppercut. Some really slick stuff there from Medic. Of course, he's lost to Jalen Turner, Mr. Turner there, and someone else. Meanwhile, Geoff Neal is 2-1 against UFC level lefties. They were kind of weird early wins for Geoff Neal. And, his last, fight with a lefty was his last loss, of course, to Carlos Prates. And I did call that one. I did call both of the Carlos Prates' knockouts by the round. And I don't want to compare Carlos Prates directly to Uros Medic. That isn't very fair. But yes, Carlos Prates did knock him out with a spinning elbow, where it was Uros Medic. He knocked out Matt Semmelsberger with a, not as crafty, but a similar attack. And before the spinning elbow, what really was, it was a lot of lead hand work and footwork, which Medic doesn't compare to Prates in that department. But what Prates was able to hurt him with before that finishing shot was some of my favorite stuff. You used to only see like Lyoto Machida do it. And then you'd see guys like with no martial arts experience, like the late, great Elias Theodorou, shout out to him, do it where they counterbalance their cross off the same side as their kick, especially if they're southpaw. So they'll throw the power kick from their left rear. And as that kick's coming down, they're counterbalancing that motion by shooting across forward. And that is a weird timing, and it catches you at a weird guard reset setup, right? And you can kind of pierce right through the middle. And he was just lighting Geoff Neal up with those. And credit to Uros Medic. I know he faced an old Muslim Salikov, who I failed and took a dog shot on last time, Mike. But at the same time, if you look at that fight, he was using that exact same technique Medic was, those kicks and counterbalancing crosses. He is the younger guy for whatever that's worth, even though durability, I still would slightly edge Neal, even at this stage of Neal's career where he's getting, slower and hit more and whatnot. Of course, by the way, the other loss was Uros Medic to Punahele Soriano, and I shared that one. That was another example of how the analysis hits. I said Uros Medic, when he's pressed hard, he retreats hard linearly, which is bad because that'll put him right in Puna's kill zone. And what happened? Punahele pressed hard. He retreated, chin up, linear retreat. We see it all the time in MMA, right, Mike? And boom, he got hit. And where is Geoff Neal's kill zone? Well, Geoff Neal's kill zone is in the same spot. He's got the Robbie Lawler kill zone between the inner black octagon lines as the fence. That's enough for me to pick him here. I hope I left enough meat on the bone for you, Mike. I apologize. I was just both passionate about this one and surprised in the sense of I'm still picking Neal. But, man, I believe Uros Medic is live as hell. And for that reason, I am looking at the under. And I'll finish more on that point. I just want to hear what you got on this fight, Mike.
Yeah, I do like the under. And, I'm psyched for this fight. I'm glad you're into this fight because sometimes, one can be into it and the other one's not. I'm really excited for this fight. The only thing I'm nervous about with Geoff Neal is this thing that came out that said that, he was alcoholism or addiction that he already nobody knew about and he stopped. Now people are looking at it as a positive, and it is a positive in life. It's a 1,000% positive, but you guys got to pull yourself out of these narratives all the time. And you got to wonder, would Lawrence Taylor be as good as he was if he wasn't doing an 8-ball of coke before a game? Would John Jones, be as good as he was if he wasn't living that ruthless lifestyle? So yes, although it's very good in life, if this really is true about Geoff Neal and his addictions and stuff like that, you got to wonder, like, he's leaving one of his friends home. That's where you got to look at it. Like, he's stepping into the cage and he's going through camp without this vice that he had. Is it going to be withdrawal? Is it going to make him a little trigger shy? Is it going to erupt his nerves a little bit? Like, there is something to be said about that. There's a reason why these people have these addictions. Like Lawrence Taylor, like, who knows? Would he be as violent he was on the field if he didn't take a couple bumps of coke before a game? We really don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But there's a reason why, you know, these things kind of carry them through these fights. So I'm not looking into that, but I'm telling you guys to not look at that. Look at it in a positive in his life for sure. But in fight right now, if this is true and it's all that new, it could be a negative, like, because it's a kind of a new world for him right now. You know what I mean? So, but I will say this about him. The way I'm breaking his fight down is I love his boxing. I love Geoff Neal's boxing. I like the way he bites down on the mouthpiece. He walks forward. He throws big shots. He throws things down the center line. He picks his punches very well. You're 100% right. As he's getting older, he's becoming a little bit more hittable. But when I look at an Uros Medic fight, I'm looking at a guy who either finishes you or gets finished.
Yep.
And that's when I lean on, okay, whose chin do I trust more? I trust Neal's chin more. I do. I trust his durability more. I trust his style a little bit more. I trust his thump a little bit more, meaning when he's inside the pocket, I trust his combinations a little bit more. So I feel like this is going to be an under. I have a feeling like this fight is going to end inside the distance, but I have a feeling at some point in time, if Geoff Neal doesn't get reckless, you know, if he doesn't get reckless, he's going to find a spot sometime like in the second round. He's going to catch Medic with a shot, put him on skates, and finish the fight. So I'm on Geoff Neal's side too. I'm going to say Geoff Neal second round knockout.
Yeah, that's me as well. I'm going more for the first. I would love to finally like be on the right side of an under, Mike. I have such terrible luck with unders. And what did I do, Mike? What did I do? Well, not only did I take this under, which depending on your bankroll is still playable straight, not for my tastes, but still playable straight. I parlayed it with Hernandez. I was going to go Hernandez Neal, but again, I like the under a little better. I get coverage in case there's an upset. And either way, I and this is a guy who hates unders. I particularly hate under 1.5s, which is what's being offered for this fight, which is what I took. But Mike, and I feel better that you're saying it, but I see it ending under. Now, it could be hairy in that round too. So what I might do for my round robin, as I tend to do for a potential hedge or potential add-on bonus, I take fight ends in round 2, right? So God forbid, it's one of those things where you're sweating, and sure enough, especially if you're on my side, you're under 1.5 doesn't hit, but you still got a half a round with these two Looney Tunes guys, right? Mad Hatters, as Ray Longo likes to call them, going at it. And yeah, man, like, you know, there's something to that. I will say Geoff Neal, he did make somewhat of a sober turnaround his last fight. So, and he did look in better shape in his last fight where he got knocked out. So maybe this, I don't know how new this narrative is. You know how it is when someone changes a camp, you'll hear about it like it's it's their first camp with the person for the first 3 or 4 fights. It's like, no, do the research and you'll see like he's been doing this. So and then your point, right, Mike? Like, does it even make a difference? Maybe he was better when he was wilding out, right? I will say this though, Neal, like that you go to that finish. A lot of us analysts make fun of Vicente Luque because he's throwing just constant left hands. It's like, Neal, you have a right hand, bro.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that with a lot in in MMA. Even Conor McGregor, right? He got a real far away with just a flim flam lead hand, right? Didn't have much to offer there. Which is why Poirier took him out in a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. And that's relevant because it's a southpaw versus southpaw matchups. And one of the metrics people use to decide, I don't rely on any one thing to decide, but this is an important metric where you want to look at the southpaws, who has the better lead hand. And I know you're all over this, Mike, being a boxing guy. You understand that it's like the sky is blue, 1 + 1 = 2 for you. But yes, when you have the same stance pairing from southpaws, I want to look at the guy with a better lead hand. And I will say this, even though he lost, Geoff Neal, when faced with a southpaw and Carlos Prates in his last fight, dude, he threw more jabs and right hooks and even kicks than I've seen in his like previous 10 years. So
did he hurt his hand in that fight?
And he might have hurt his hand too, so maybe that's why he was throwing his right more. But it was actually a nice change.
If I remember correctly, I mean, not that he would have won the fight, but I think he did hurt his hand in that fight.
I wouldn't have been surprised, but I hope that's not the only reason why he was throwing more, if that's the case for Neal's case. But I
Yeah.
will pick Neal here. I'm cruising for a bruising, guys. I've got two parlays, two-legger parlays coming at you. One of the prelims we'll get to, but this is the main card, one for plus money. And guess what? They both have unders. So how cruising for a bruising am I with my luck with unders? I hate unders, and I'm breaking my rule, Mike. Let's move on, shall we? We got Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa, the Dalmatian. Costa, who was my MMA junkie under the radar fighter of 2025, right? And the year before that was Steve Garcia, aged well. Well, we'll see if Costa can age well. The odds makers are favoring him, Mike, at minus 210. Comeback on Dynamite, Dynamite Dan, 100K Ige, we should say. Let's see if we can get that 100K this weekend. The comeback on Ige, plus 180. This opened tighter, but money has come in on Costa. Not too surprising. Curious to get your opinion on that. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 230. Over 2.5, minus 280. So they're showing respect to Dan Ige's durability as far as the totals go, Mike. But the public and odds makers not necessarily showing him respect with the inflated dog odds. Now, Ige is facing a southpaw. Before I throw it to you, I want to give you these stats for the audience and yourself, Mike. Ige 3-2 against UFC level lefties, though. He kind of could be 4-1. That Bryce-Mitchell fight, even if you did score it for Bryce, it's literally on optics, and it comes down to one exchange. It's like very Arnold Allen, Mavzar Ivloyev coded as far as scoring that fight. And he, and it was just one of those ones where like Bryce Mitchell has his eye blown up and beat the shit. He has knocked down, somehow still wins the fight, kind of a deal, right? With optics and crucial top control to close out the round. However, what's not represented in there, and of course, a little bit of engagement bait, because sadly that's what works the most. But I did post Ige in a little mini southpaw report there. He also knocked down Lerone Murphy, who is a southpaw primary switch stance fighter, which I do have stats for that coming down for you guys later in the card for as well. But yeah, he almost KO'd Lerone Murphy, countering a southpaw kick and cross that Lerone throws. Ige can match southpaw, as well as seen in that clip. But man, he does have a tall task. I will say that he does have a tall task in front of him. I don't have my blinders on that far, Mike. But break it down for the folks. What does this matchup look like to you?
Yeah, if you don't like Dan Ige, you don't have a heartbeat. Like, what's not to like about this guy, right? I mean, the guy's a dog. The guy comes in last minute notice. He basically rolls off the couch and comes to the arena. Like, he's a dog. Dan Ige is a dog. The problem I got with Dan Ige is that you can be too technical, and I just look at Dan Ige as like just a perfectly technical fighter. Like, he's very technical on his feet. He's technical on the ground. He does everything fundamentals. Like, when you think about fundamentals, you think about a fighter like Dan Ige. Very traditional. Nothing's really blasphemous or crazy dynamic. And if you get into this fundamental, rut with him, Dan Ige is going to beat you because he's durable. He's got good cardio. He does everything right. Like, there's not a lot of things that he does. You're like, what are you doing? Why did you just do that? Like, there's a couple things I've seen him do, turning the wrong way and stuff like that. But as far as like the nuts and bolts of his game, he's very fundamentally sound, like very, very fundamentally sound. And from a DraftKings perspective, that's kind of what you want, because you're looking at a $7,300 price tag and a guy like Ige, where you're like, what is the one thing you want to look for if a guy's a dog? First of all, you want to look at his durability, because the more seconds and minutes he has in a fight, the more chance he has to winning the fight. You know what I mean? So when you look at that, but when you look at it from a betting and a picking perspective, it's a little bit different. I'm looking at this fight like Costa is just more of the optics guy. He's the guys he's willing to take more chances. He's willing to ooh and ah the crowd a little bit. Where Ige is going to sit there and Ige is going to just play his game. Fundamental, nothing that's going to blow your hair back. Like, oh my God, did you see what he just did? And Costa's willing to do those things. He's willing to bring a little bit of a controlled chaos into the mix, where Ige is willing to get in the scrap of you. He's willing to have these wars with you, but they got to kind of be fundamental wars. They kind of got to be either in the pocket, or they got to be a certain way, where Costa's willing to do some spinning stuff, willing to take risks. And I think that's going to be the edge in the fight. You could be super, super, super technical, and you could be super, super durable, but the durability is not going to win you the fight. You still got to do something to win those rounds and to kind of take away the momentum from somebody like Costa. And I just think the momentum that he's on right now, I mean, every time you see him, he surprises you more and more and more. I think Ige is a very live dog against anybody, but I just think that this is a fight that Costa wins. I don't like the odds. I wouldn't play this fight.
Right.
I don't think he's going to finish Ige in this fight. I think he's, I think anybody has a problem finishing him. But I think this is, a fight where it could be a close 29-28 decision where, just the optics of Costa's desperation and willing to take chances wins him this fight.
Yeah, man. I just got biased in this fight, folks, like I stated before. Not just with Extreme Couture, Eric Nixick, but I got a fellow Hawaiian, Dan Ige, who I've interviewed a lot. And I've known Dan since he was like managing fighters, like back in the day where I was talking about, Anthony Hernandez and like back 2018, 2017 era Contender Series. He was helping. He used to be Ali Abdelaziz's assistant way back in the day. People forget that, right? And so he actually had some managing experience, and so I would deal with Dan a lot with be on the side while fighters were getting interviewed. Just always a class guy. So I obviously have bias here, guys. That being said, even with my bias aside, and there'll be full bias on me picking Ige, this is not a fight you want to play, like Mike said. And if you do, there are ways to play it, which I will lay out for you now. Because there is the Ige is live, right? Like I said, he's got a decent record against southpaws, can fight from that stance. He will be the more dangerous fighter in boxing range, and kicking range is going to be real dangerous because he is an orthodox wrestle boxer archetype and shorter. So against a southpaw kicker who we just saw get a highlight reel head kick KO, contender of the year, right? Very dangerous. But Ige, again, really good footwork, good strategy. Good fundamentals, like Mike was saying, and can fight from southpaw, so we can close off that body kick and head kick lane to a certain extent. And grappling too. Ige's grappling, perhaps I don't want to say overrated, but I would say maybe underachieved in certain spots earlier on in his UFC career. But when it has gone to grappling, he's been much better about staying in positive positions in the latter part of his career. Now I know Diego Lopez, there was weird stuff going with that fight that people just look at the Ige side and praise him as he deserves. But, you got to give credit to Lopez too. That was a weird fight. He had to weigh in twice and it was the third round. He clearly wasn't feeling great, but the fact was he was able to control a guy like Diego Lopez, who Movsar Evloev even couldn't help but stay, was constantly getting submission scares, right? Getting caught in submission scares. So Ige does have that edge. I think he can win this fight. Do I want to play him? Not necessarily, although if he gets to 2-1, I feel like even if he didn't have Danny Gay bias, you're pretty much getting a whole dollar inflation on the price. And it's like, okay, it's dog or pass at that point, right? I don't think that's unfair to say, even with my bias. But here's what I'm looking at, Mike, is the points handicap for Ige, because he's not going to get finished, right? And the total is respecting that, like we said, his history of that. And guys, I want to remind you, since the first two fights, main event could probably go to decision, granted, but I don't think there could be too much controversy there. We'll see if it's a close fight, but we are in Texas, Mike. This goes double. You know this from not just MMA, from boxing as well. We are in Texas, folks, so split decision props are going to be live, even if they shouldn't be. So I might throw a split decision prop. They got Ige plus 500 by decision, which is pretty sexy, again, especially if you factor in that he doesn't have to win in Texas, right? No, maybe I put the split decision prop in there. And the only thing I would consider playing straight is the points handicap. However, it's minus 170. And like most odds, they tend to tighten throughout the week. So if you were looking at, points handicaps like I've given out on the show many times that have hit, whether it was Chris Gutierrez or Peter Yan at plus 195, you want to fire on those early, because they're going to get bet down to maybe like plus 120, right? Whereas the opposite on favorites, whereas I made the mistake where I bite down on minus 170 like it is now, or I bite down on minus 150. And then by Friday, it's down to minus 120. So I'm going to hope for that, because I don't want to overextend myself here. But Mike, if it gets below minus 150 or below, I might fire on Danny Ige's points handicap, and I might put fight goes to split decision in a round robin. Is that sensible takes, or is my bias bleeding in underneath that?
Very sensible takes. And we talk about Texas all the time. Texas, not only in MMA, but judging in general, has been very, very interesting. I mean, Paulie Malignaggi, I was going to cue it up, but it's 3 minutes long, so I don't want to play it here. But if you guys go on YouTube and you type in Paulie Malignaggi, Texas judges, he was robbed in Texas. I mean, robbed. And when Max Kellerman brought him, to the in the center of the ring, they obviously brought the loser into the center of the ring, because even Max Kellerman thought he was robbed. And he said, listen, I love Texas. It's a great fight town. But the fact of the matter is if you're not a Texas guy, or they don't like you, they're never going to give you a fair shake. So It's Texas is interesting, man. Texas is like kind of, you know, the United States of Brazil when it comes to being over in Brazil. So yeah, these split decision props. If you guys think a fight's going to be close, you might as well, man. Might as well. You can give it a little swing. If you're going to do it anywhere, you do it in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just think it's going to the cards, and it could be competitive, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the prerequisite there. Let's push on. This one's going to be much faster, at least for me, Mike. And I've got lead off on this, so be prepared to bounce to you. We got Serghei Spivac versus Ante Delija. Delija minus 145, your favorite. Comeback on Spivac plus 125, over 1.5 rounds, plus 115, under 1.5 rounds, minus 145. I've been a Spivac fan. He's cashed some nice tickets when he showed up, but he's a guy who is really inconsistent. He can just kind of defeat himself before he even gets in there, which is a problem because heavyweight and MMA heavyweight is volatile enough. As seen in Delija's last fight, that should have been a win, but ended up being a loss, right? Because of the crazy calls, and you could argue it was the right call. That was a bad protocol. Not trying to relitigate that, but the point was that was an awful beat that, of course, your boy was on the wrong end of. And I'm curious, you know, I don't want to redouble down and go on Ante Delija again here. But I will probably pick him because this fight is in the bigger cage. And when I was alluding to, Mike, earlier, that some of these fights, my pick kind of hinges on the cage side. So this is one of them. I would be much more, and Spivac can win, which is why I'm not playing this fight. I would be much more sympathetic to a Spivac case if it were in the smaller cage, Mike. But in the bigger cage, I do like Delija. And against the cage, he's got a pretty strong base, some good punches off the breaks. I'll take Delija. No strong takes, though. Who do you got, Mike?
Yeah, I don't got a strong take on this. This is a clash. This is a clash. You know what I mean? This is a typical heavyweight clash where you got one guy in Delija who shows some really good striking. Obviously confidence in his striking, good technical ability, but he's still kind of unproven when it comes to going. You know, he's proven on land, but he's not proven on sea. You know what I mean? And somebody like Spivac is somebody who can give him a test there. You know, he can, if he has success taking him to the ground, whether you're a great grappler or not, if you know what you're doing and you know where you are on the ground, somebody the size of Spivac, if he's on top of you, he knows what he's doing. He knows where his real estate is. He knows how to, you know, put your into certain situations where it's going to be hard any which way but loose to get up. That's my question here with Delija. It's like, what's going to happen if Spivac does have success with his grappling? What if he does get him in a situation where he takes them down and gets on top of them? Is Delija going to be a fish out of water? Is he going to be able to get up? Is he going to be able to, is he going to just turtle to his back? There are still questions.
Yep.
Hasn't really looked fantastic. You know what I mean? You got to wonder at that point, like, where do you go? There's like, you got to pick the lesser of the two evils. And there are question marks on Delija, and I'm willing to take a flyer on Spivac here. I am. I'm willing to see that. Nice. If you're going to stand and trade with this guy, you're a moron. Like, you are a moron. You could stand and trade with him a little bit to set up your shots, but test his grappling. Like, test where people have not been able to really super test him. You know, so listen, I wouldn't bet money on it. I wouldn't sit there and say, you know, lock it up, put him in your draft, because. But I think that there is something to be said. If you have a path to win, then you know the dog is live, and I think Spivac is live here if he comes in with the right game plan. So I'll take a shot on him.
You know what play does look kind of makes sense, and I hate to say it because it's heavyweight MMA and it's an under, but the under 1.5 seems really playable at minus 135.
Yeah, I could see that because I could see Delija putting it on him and knocking him out. Because listen, we've seen Spivac fold, right? Yep. We've seen him fold. And also, if Spivac gets him to the ground early and puts him in a bad position, maybe gets full mount on him, how is Delija going to react?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. It's going to be Spivac's very do or die. You want at least one of those guys in an under equation, right? That you're going to fire on. Yep. So yeah, that as well is possible in live. And I will say this too. Maybe it's not a mistake, Mike, that all these unders are coming to mind because and not to get woo-woo about it, but like even before this UFC Paramount era, we only want action fights. Like, to the UFC's credit, dude, their fight nights like in Texas have always been crazy, like action. Like, remember UFC Hidalgo back in the day, Michael Johnson knocking out Dustin Poirier and all the knockouts on that card. What was it last year where we had the Arman Sarukian, or the year before last year, Arman Sarukian, Beneil Dariush, last time they were there for a fight night in Texas? It wasn't it all knockouts throughout the whole, like a finish on every fight, the last fight night they did in Texas. Yep. And a lot of these fights have that similar vibe. So if you have So maybe I should be forgiving on myself, but if a contrarian under hater like myself keeps seeing unders, maybe it's for a reason, Mike, right?
Yep, of course.
All right, let's move on to the next fight. I'm really excited about this one. You're going to be leading off bat for it. Heads up, I will give you some southpaw stats, which there really isn't much. We got Jacobe Smith, who was initially supposed to face Seok Ko, who me and Mike have been familiar with. And he's getting Josiah Harrell. Now, Josiah Harrell is a southpaw, and good news for Smith. He was already preparing for a southpaw, but we don't know how he looks against southpaws. And I even went digging in his. I did a lot of tape from both guys in his amateurs, and yeah, he is 0-0 against UFC level and non-UFC level. And I am familiar with Jacobe Smith because he made my 2023 prospects to watch that came out in January 2023, about 3 years later. And yeah, he's been, fulfilling that spot. Although I will say he looked shaky against Nico Price. I'll let you touch on that. But he's been getting respect from the odds, except for this time. I think a lot of people off the glance test would be like, hey, shouldn't this be bigger odds? But Josiah Harrell, the southpaw that I just mentioned, I'm just going to give some background on his story before I throw it to you, Mike. He was supposed to actually fight Jack Della Maddalena, which would have been a fire fight. If you watch tape on this guy, I would have still favored Jack, of course, but even back then. But, oh, God, great matchmaking. To the UFC matchmaker's credit, I give him a lot of crap. However, he had to pull out from that fight. He had a brain issue and had to actually have some like cancer and stuff removed, like some masses and whatnot. And crazy story. I don't know if that's why he stopped cutting to lightweight, because he's only 5'7", even though he looks more on the 5'8" side, whereas Jacoby's like 5'10", maybe more on the 5'9" side. So I don't know how much the size is going to be a factor, but yeah, he is small for the division, Josiah Harrell, but he's got an amazing story. He's undefeated. And I like what I saw on tape, but Mike, long setup. What did you see on tape? Do these odds make sense to you? Do you get it? Or are you against it? What's up?
I mean, I'm very skeptical of Smith, and the reason being is because I look at this is, to me, it's called this is a translation fight. This is to see if he's going to translate, and we had to see that with Joaquin Buckley, right? This was a guy where when Joaquin Buckley first came into the UFC, he was kind of a Thunderdome. The guy there was nothing really tied to his game. He used his explosion, his power. He just kind of looked like Mike Tyson in there, just kind of coming, and then all of a sudden, Joaquin Buckley translated. He started tying things into his game. He started utilizing wrestling. He started timing things the right way. So he translated. When you got a guy like Jacobe Smith, who's like a very good athlete, very explosive, good power, good wrestling, he's got all these islands, but none of the islands merged together yet. Like, he kind of fights on instinct. There's no blueprint behind his fighting style. And he kind of showed that against Nico Price. And that's what scares me in this fight, is because he literally just blew his cork. I mean, he looked like not horrible, but I mean, yeah, he won the fight. But if you see the resume, you're like, okay, second round knockout. But he did not look good against like Nico Price, who just got completely waxed in his last, just 2 weeks ago. So there is concern for me there, because it's like, you can't live your life and you can't come in and just bank on explosion and athleticism and power. Like, that's only going to take you so far. Eventually, the bottom's going to fall out. And I do believe the bottom is eventually going to fall out on this kid before he starts to realize, like, I need to come in with kind of a game plan. Like, I just can't come in and just pull my guns out and say, whatever happens, happens. Like, I can't rely on my athleticism and explosion forever and my power forever. Like, I need to have a game plan. So this is the fight where we're going to see, is he going to come in? Did he learn that lesson from that close call from Nico Price? Like, I got to conserve my gas tank a little bit. I got to understand, like, conditioning is key here. I got to have like a rhyme and a reason why I'm doing things, because if he doesn't do that in this fight, I think this is a dangerous fight for him. Like, this is a fight where I would say, like we say the term buyer beware, like, you got to be careful in this fight. Like, if you guys are looking to stack this thing in parlays and stuff like that, like, I'd be very cautious with doing that until he shows you that, yes, I have a rhyme and reason why I'm doing things. I'm just not coming in here winning fights on athletic ability, explosion, and power. Like, I do have wrestling, which we know he does have a very good wrestling, but everything's just like on instinct. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing tied to his game. I'd like to see something tied to his game, to it, because I do think he has upside. So I'm picking him here. I think he does win this fight. But like I said, this is a situation where, like, if he just comes in with that same mindset where he's just going to throw gum to the wall to see if it sticks, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the second round, Harrell's still there, it could get dicey. Dicey. So, give me Smith here, but as far as the odds, and I don't know if I'm looking to tie this into anything.
No, I agree. And again, as a guy who admittedly has two parlays on this card, right? This is a very dangerous card to parlay, right? Just being real, right? And I'm going to keep that same energy despite my plays. I'm going to be, open about that, and honest about the potential hypocrisy I could be stepping in. But this is some mud that I definitely don't want to step into as a favorite because it looks trappy as hell. Like Harrell's coming in on a week notice, right? Like who is he fought, right? This guy is a prospect. He made my prospect list, right? You think I should be all over Smith. And spoiler alert, he's gonna be my pick, but this is a dog or pass spot. And I wish, even though I feel crazy, I'm not as crazy in a good way, because when you're talking crazy, hopefully you at least have the odds to back it up, right? This is the game. When everybody looks one way, you look the other. But here's the thing is I would argue Harrell's getting a lot of respect on the odds, right? And I get it, but I'm surprised to see it. Does that make sense when I say that, Mike?
Yeah, like think really. I was just gonna say, think about it. He's not even a 2-1 favorite. He's not even a 2-1 favorite. And this is a guy in Harrell who's debuting. He's coming in on short notice, and a guy in Jacobe Smith who people are essentially high on. You're looking at it kind of trappy, saying, "Hold on a second, dude. I'm getting value here on Jacobe Smith. Like I'm taking it." And then all of a sudden, that's the fight that you're like, "I can't fucking believe I just did that." You know what I mean? So be careful here, because, like I said, this is a translation fight. I agree with you 100,000%. This is a fight that, like, I don't know if I would. I don't think there's enough meat on the bone for me to take Harrell. But it's
Not
just
now,
a fight for me. Yeah, I got to stay. I mean, if he was plus 300, plus 350, I'd say, you know what, let me take a little sprinkle. But nah, dude, I'm staying away from it. I think this is Jacoby's fight to win or lose, but it scares me.
So I'll be honest. I had that same philosophy, and I felt like it should have been at least 3-1. So I was upset at it. But I saw where the line was trending, and this isn't on my official plays, So this will probably be something that cashes. We know how that goes, right? If you look at my records, I've been doing better at some of the unofficial ones that could have got me over the line if I gave myself the credit for. But I'm just going to be transparent, as I always am with you guys. I did take a small sprinkle on Harrell at plus 285, which was the best of the line so far that you could have gotten this week, because money came in early. And it's because I did watch the tape. Now, not only was Mike spot on with his analysis of Smith, so I don't want to step on too much there. I will just underline Mike's analysis and the points that he was drawing to the fact that you're right, Mike. Like when he's successful and doing something right, he immediately, because he's got Safe Saud, so he started from AKA when I picked him up on my prospects list. Then he goes over to Fortis, which isn't bad. At least you're gonna have a guy like Safe Saud telling you to freaking jab, which people don't do enough, right? One, two, laser, one. At least getting the optics, getting the volume. That's who you want, right? And Smith has been able to win decisions in the amateurs before, so he's shown the ability. But did his gas look great? No. And how did he bail himself out in round 2 and 3? It's exactly how you think. He muscled the guy down for takedowns, and the guys didn't have much of a wrestling or get up game, right? And we see him kind of have a propensity, like Mike said, to blow his wad. So if Harrell's still there in 2 and 3, it could be sketchy. Now, here's the even sketchier thing. Harrell is a guy who looks like he thrives in 2 or 3. The reason why I liked the matchup with Delija Maddalena, because they're very similar. A southpaw primary. Maddalena is more of a switch. This guy's a southpaw primary. But very similar style, uses the lead hand a lot as a southpaw, will combo up, counters and combinations, really dynamic. Not the sharpest technique because he's still a little bit raw. He's still young. He's still a young kid coming up, right? But super technical, really good wrestling and scrambling. He almost hit the Mighty Whiz Bar, which sounds like something that would get you in trouble in some search engine searches. But that Mighty Mouse technique that he had on Ray Borg, for people that don't know what I'm talking about, like what rabbit hole did Danton dive down now? He almost hit that in his last fight in LFA. He had a contenders. It was a contenders fight, prospect fight against a guy Dumalatov or something like that. He was a Kyrgyzstani Sambo world champion prospect, Mike, and so he's not very well known, but that guy has more depth and transition flow, I would argue, than even a guy that has a higher ceiling athletic background and wrestling credentials like Smith. Now, to Smith's credit, he actually will throw a single hook in. We've seen him get rear naked chokes before. So those are great signs that you want to see from a wrestler. But as far as fluid, like you said, Mike, a process, right? Having those layers and transitions, proven and tested, tried and we haven't really seen that. And yeah, how much have we seen from some regional guy from Kyrgyzstan? Are you talking about, Dan? Granted, okay, but that guy's credentials and how he was moving, I liked what I saw, because he starts getting the better of the grappling exchanges at first. But Harrell's a guy who, he's a good scrambler, good get up game, but he'll also go for things like leg locks, but not like seriously, like to take ground and pound. He'll use them to get on top, which we'll compare to another guy in the card who doesn't use that, which we'll talk about. And man, like we haven't really seen Geoff Neal face that. Niko Price, maybe some underrated jiu-jitsu, but never been good from bottom unless he's getting a random fluke knockout over Randy Brown, right? And even me, who had some semblance to take Niko Price in a round robin flyer, even me found out, okay, yeah, he is washed beyond washed, right? So how much do we really rate that? And you look at Niko Price, that last fight, I know it was short notice, but compared to how he did against Jacobe Smith, yeah, man, big worries there. So we're going to push through a lot of these prelims fast. Went longer on this fight than I expected. But guys, I took an unofficial sprinkle on Harrell because it's a dog or pass, despite the pick being Smith. Call me a hypocrite if you want. We've went over these dynamics too many times before, folks. It's analysis, picks, and plays are all different things. The more faster you figure it out, the better you'll do. And I will say this, Mike, unofficially, I'm probably going to be looking at round props for to lay pre-flop round 2 and 3 for Harrell, because I think those are going to be juicy once those drop. And you could do a whole lot worse than just sprinkling a bit on those. But outside of that, I want no part with the favorite I'm picking, which is Smith.
All right, great.
All right, let's move on here. Next fight down. Are we still on the main card? Do we finally get to the prelims? No. Main card opener, middleweights. Zachary Reese versus Michel Pereira. I won't be too long on this one. We got Zachary Reese plus 125, Pereira minus 145, under 1.5 rounds, minus 125, over 1.5, plus 105. Same thing with Uros Medic, man. I'm not picking Zach Reese. Spoiler alert, picking Michel Pereira here. I think this is mine to start off, I believe. Yeah, I will say that Zach Reese, like Medic, a lot livelier than I think, right? These guys have also trained together, which is, if this fight wasn't volatile enough, right, for you to, both these guys individually weren't untrustworthy enough. Like, you're also getting that X factor that I hate, former trading partners, right? That being said, Zach Reese does seem smarter than you might give him credit for. He will go for a path of least resistance eventually, after getting Muay Thai in the clinch to death almost by Jackson McVeigh. But one thing I did notice in that McVeigh fight and other fights, Mike, I mean, not that Reese is the most durable fighter. He is not, right? And Michel, as much of a cannon as he is, he's got a bit of a glass to him too, to the glass cannon archetype there. But I did notice that he was particularly weak to the body. And say what you will about Michel Pereira, he's got a mean front kick to the body. And when last time he fought a guy who was weak to the body, and Michal Oleksiejczuk, who, by God, costed me that Polish. You see how close that Polish cycle was?
Yeah.
The easiest, of course, it's the easiest leg that doesn't go through, which was the Oleksiejczuk by KO. Anyways, Michel Pereira, as crazy as he was smart enough to go to the body, right? And he gets that finish. So I got to imagine it's here. I know he's coming off of a bad look against Kyle Dukakis, but I got love for Dukakis. You know, this could be a classic buy low spot. Not that I would suggest buying anything of Michel Pereira, but this could be a buy low spot because of that, Mike. I will pick Pereira here, but I don't want nothing to do with this fight. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this could be a very good buy low spot for him, because I think he's a much better fighter than Zach Reese. The thing with Michel Pereira is that he is a coach's dream and nightmare at the same time. He's a dream because he's got all the physical attributes. He's big for the division. He's extremely athletic. He's dynamic, but he's also a nightmare because as a coach, you have to understand how much chaos do I take out of his game before his game doesn't work anymore. Because someone like Michel Pereira, he needs that chaos. He needs some kind of chaos. But if you go all the way back when he fought Tristan Connolly and he went berserk and he was doing all the backflips and stuff, like, he learned there, like, okay, well, maybe all this chaos needs to be reeled in him a little bit. Then he comes and he fights Diego Sanchez. He loses that fight. Then now all of a sudden he starts getting some discipline to his game, and he goes on an 8-fight win streak, and now he's on a 2-fight losing streak again, because it almost seems like he's too disciplined. We've seen it in the fight with Diego Lopez. They took the chaos out of his game, and they just made him this disciplined fighter to become a boxer against Volkanovski. Like, guys like that, you can't take the chaos completely out of their game. You have to understand the fine line. I like what I'm seeing, the way he's, what he's doing at Extreme Couture. Like, he's doing a lot of sparring and stuff like that, like some high volume stuff. This is his fight to win or lose. This has to do with, where are you going to draw the line from discipline to chaos? That's where it is. You got to understand, you got to be disciplined in there. You can't be a loose cannon, but you also can't take the complete chaotic personality out of his game, because then he's nothing. You know, some people thrive in that chaos, and he does. And Zach Reese is a guy who's going to bring chaos. He's a guy who doesn't really do anything technically perfect. He likes to thump. He's also a big guy for the division. And I think that plays right into the hands of Michel Pieta, where even if he wants to be disciplined, even if he's a little too disciplined, he's going to have no choice but go back to saying, all right, well, he was getting chaos with me. I'm going to show him chaos. And I think you're right. I think a teep kick to the stomach, something along the lines is going to soften him up. And I do like him. And like I said, it could completely crumble. But I think if you're looking at a buy low spot for somebody on this card, Michel Pieta could be the guy.
As wild as it is to say, I think we're in agreement there. Shout out to MMA Locker Room in the chat, giving us some good stuff. He said, Dan, check out my interview with Josiah we did on Monday. It's pretty good. I think I might have seen it because I watched like every interview on the guy. Maybe the last one I watched was on Monday, so maybe I just missed it. Either way, there's a shout for you, MMA Locker Room. Thanks for participating. Hit the like, folks. You want to join the chat, make sure you follow the Mayo Media Network on YouTube. Search Dog or Pass to find us in particular, and we'll be here. Like, subscribe, shout, share, tag us on the social medias. Mike, let's turn on the afterburners here and power through these prelims, starting off with Chidi Bang Bang Ninja Kawani. This first one's going to you, by the way. He's facing Carlos Leal. Of course, the money has been coming in on I believe Chidi. This was wider, I believe I want to say, or the line flipped. Someone correct me if I'm wrong here. Minus 120 for Leal, plus 100 on Chidi. Over 1.5, plus 130. Under 1.5, minus 150. No southpaws here to give. I will just, before I throw it to you, Mike, I will just say that I'm leaning toward Chidi here. But, dude, this is a fight that the line movement is scaring me away. We've had a lot of these line movements on injuries or rumored injuries on fights that either took place or didn't take place. And I'll admit, it's getting me a little shaky in my boots, Mike, to touch this fight. Do you? What's your analysis? And did you catch any of that line movement?
Yeah, I'll keep this one short. To me, I don't understand it. To be honest with you, I'm on Chidi's side on this one. I think that everything that Leal does plays into the hands of Chidi. I think when you look at the way Leal just take his one win against Morono, the one thing he did have success with is in the clinch. He likes to clinch up. He likes to throw elbows off the clinch. Like, those are all great. Those things do not work with someone like Chidi. Chidi's far better in the clinch. Delivers knees up the middle. You know, he's actually pretty violent in the clinch. The thing that concerns me with Chidi is sometimes he can get tired, and they're mostly within those tight grappling type exchanges where, you know, he will get tired. He's not like a fundamentally perfect striker, but he does have length. He does have range. I think he's the more down the center striker. And I think that everything that the Leal likes to do is what Chidi excels in, which is he likes to get into the clinch. He likes to fight dirty. And you don't want to do that with someone like Chidi. So the line movement, I really don't understand. I mean, I get it. You know, I understand that both of these guys really aren't trustworthy, but I think the line should be the other way. I think Chidi should be the slight favorite. So, you know, give me the value.
Yeah, and I'm looking now. It looks like he opened as a plus 220 dog. So I get that, but I think I saw somebody post that the rapid succession in which it dropped. You know, I think everybody's a little on edge, right? Where we're just like, oh, does somebody know something we don't? So I don't want to overreact to that. That being said, you know, I agree. He's going to have the advantage in the clinch. And even if you look at how like Salikov, an older fighter too, like Chidi, right, was able to pick him off. And Chidi has those from both stances, by the way. He's got some decent, like, you know, Adesanya style where he steps to southpaw and can counter from that stance too. So yeah,
very good kicks up the middle too.
Yep. Yeah, very good kicks up the middle. So I like Chidi here, but there's not a lot of meat on the bone. The line movement initially kind of scared me. So it's just a pick for now. No action for me, Mike.
Yep.
As of this moment. All right, let's go to the next fight. Ode Osbourne. I had to say it like Willem Dafoe in the Spider-Man series versus Idris Elba. No, Alibi Idiris. Sorry, I was going to say Idris Elba. Shout out to The Wire. Alibi Idiris minus 130, your favorite. Ode Osbourne, a little bit of money coming in on him. He's still the underdog, though, holding at plus 110. Over 1.5, minus 210. It's a flyweight fight. Under 1.5, plus 180. It is a flyweight fight, though, so I mean, that's interesting, but I get it because, you know, Alibi showed he can be finished, is not as good as he is, whereas Ode has overperformed and has always had finishing prospects for a flyweight. He is big for that flyweight limit. Mike, I believe this one is for me to kick off, or is it? Yep. Yeah, it's for me to kick off. So, yeah, Idiris, he is 0-0 against UFC level lefties, so there's not much to take there. But Ode Osbourne, man, it really impressed me in his last fight. I know Erceg did not look super confident, right? So you're doing the math. Okay, how much of it was Erceg looking bad and Ode looking good? But in my opinion, I don't think you can take away from Ode looking good. I don't think you can take away from his experience. And unless you are lights out in a certain area or you can really out dynamic him, and counter him like Manel Kopp. And that, even up, say what you will about the stoppage, that fight, wasn't like a washout. It was a big singular moment. O'Day's pretty game, man. He is pretty game. So I actually like O'Day Osbourne here. I haven't played him because there isn't a ton of meat on the bone. And it is also a flyweight fight, which, can come with its own volatility. Mike, who do you like? Do you like the line? Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like O'Day Osbourne in this fight. I think that the reason why that this is sitting where it is because he has a tendency with all his talent in the world, he tends to shoot himself in the foot all the time. When he loses, it's really a lot of times it's a mistake on his part. You know what I mean? He'll slip on that banana peel, put himself in a bad position, and you're like, oh, here we go. Almost like Michael Johnson does, sometimes but he's got talent. The kid is smart. He's well educated with the way he talks. He understands the fight game. Like he is good. Like O'Day Osbourne is good, but he has a tendency sometimes to be his own worst enemy. But I like what I've seen against Serghei, like you said, and I think that if he carries that momentum, even though it was off a loss, if he has that kind of same approach, like there's nothing that Idiris does that like is super impressive. Like he's from Kazakhstan, so he's got that like mystique, But I think O'Day Osbourne is absolutely live to win this fight. So yeah, give me O'Day Osbourne.
All right, let's go to the next fight. We got Alden Coria versus Luis Gurule. Alden should be your favorite here in the minus 280 area with the comeback on Gurule plus 240, under 2.5 rounds, plus 135, over 2.5 rounds, minus 155. Mike, you'll be leading off on this one, but I'll just warn you, I'm going to be pretty quick on this one myself, but feel free, man. Fire away. What do you got for this fight?
Yeah, initially I thought the line was ludicrous, and then after I was looking at it, I was like, I can understand why the line is the way it is. Gurule's good. Listen, there's nothing. I have nothing against him. A good takedown defense. He's got a decent sprawl. He's got decent wrestling. He doesn't really pull the trigger all that much. Like if you look at his striking count and stuff like that, he's kind of just he picks and chooses spots. Coria's boxing is really good. Like it's really, really good. I mean, it's, if you really, really watch him and you rewind some of the things that he does, his boxing is really, really, really slick. So I like him in this spot. I don't know if he's going to finish Gurule here. But I think when you look at just the way these guys match up, I don't see Gurule having anything for him on the feet. Like I don't really anything. Like I actually like this kid. Like this is a kid that I'm going to keep my eye on. I really like this kid's boxing. I like this kid's thought process in there. How he kind of he just hits the gas enough. He doesn't over accelerate. He doesn't under accelerate. He kind of gives you a perfect pace. Has a gradual buildup when he needs to. And like I said, his boxing is really, really educated and fun to watch. So give me Coria here.
Yeah, I like Coria. I think he's got the better boxing, but he's also the more dynamic striker. Wrestling and scrambles could be a wash, but he trains with 4 Ounce Fight Club, so he's got a real good guillotine training with Daniel Pineda. So I imagine he's going to have some front choke threats. So if Gurule, who is the wrestle boxing archetype, presses in, could run into that. I think that Coria actually could be one of the quietly, I don't even want to say safe and parlay pieces because that feels like an oxymoron. But as far as parlay pieces, I would consider, I didn't take him, but he was right on deck, if that makes sense, Mike.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's fine. I think from a DraftKings perspective, I think he's a solid cash game play.
Solid buy. All right. Let's go with that. We got the next fight here. I got lead off on this one. Nora Cornolle versus Joselyne Edwards. No relation to Leon. Minus 305 for Edwards, plus 255 to come back on Cornolle. Over 2.5, minus 280, under 2.5, plus 230. I'll just be quick on this one. I like Edwards here. I threw her in a parlay, which is cruising for a bruising WMA. It is a WMA parlay, so maybe you can guess the next leg coming. But yeah, I got Edwards here. Nora Cornolle, she can make fights kind of competitive in the clinch, if you will, maybe get some splits that maybe shouldn't go to splits, but I don't see that getting much traction with Joselyne Edwards. Joselyne Edwards has been inconsistent, but quietly sharpening things up over with Nate Pettit, who is one of the striking coaches over there, works with Chris Curtis and other guys out of Extreme Couture. Maybe biased on that side, I guess, maybe if you want to say that, but yeah, I like Edwards here. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, I like Edwards a lot in this spot. Actually, this is an under on I'm interested in. Her last 3 fights in a row, 2 of them by knockout, 1 of them by sub. She's finishing fights, man. She's got a chip on her shoulder. She's fighting very, very well. It's almost like she hit another gear. I mean, I think all the training with Valentina Shevchenko and stuff is eventually things like that do pay off. You know what I mean? And
yes.
She's got momentum. She's got the taste of blood for finishing. I'm going to say Joselyne Edwards, second round finisher. So I think I like the under there.
I would love it if that happens, and that would make a lot of sense, tracking her recent record like that. Good recap on that. Let's push to the next fight, which I'm glad you're going to lead off on because it's got some more Hawaiian extreme couture bias, baby. We got Punahele Soriano facing Ramiz Brahimaj. Brahimaj minus 125. Comeback on Punahele plus 105. Over 2.5 rounds plus 155. Under 2.5 rounds, minus 180. I'll give you some southpaw stats, Mike, before I throw it over to you, which is really quick because Brahimaj has been an overperformer, but has not performed against any southpaw. So that'll be a big question mark for this one, Mike. Well, what are you looking at? What do you got?
My biggest concern here is Soriano's cardio. That's like really, really my biggest concern. I think he's the better fighter. I do. I think he's got, good boxing. Could brush up a little bit. He's got good power. His wrestling's there. Like, I do like Soriano in this spot, but my question is if Brahimaj pushes a pace on him and really makes him wrestle and really makes him work, is his cardio going to hold up? Because we've seen him in the third round just completely fade, like completely fade. So, like, there could be a situation where he's up a round and a half. He's maybe going into the third round, even up 2-0, and now you're sweating because now he's backing up. His mouth is open. Brahimaj is really putting a pace on him, or the second round is super close, and you're not sure. Like, is it 1-1? Is it 2-0? And now in the third round, he's fading out. So it's a dangerous spot. I do like Soriano here. I think he has if anyone's going to finish this fight, I think he has the most finishing equity out of the two. And obviously that's the way the line is leaning. It's leaning towards the under.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go Soriano here. Put my faith in him that his cardio does hold up and he gets this when it's done inside the distance, catches a shot at some point.
Wow, Puna. Well, we do have the value argument on our side, Mike, where he opened as a minus 170 favorite. Now he's an underdog. So there was that argument, right? Never be afraid to fade the public. Although, again, you're like, does the public know something I know? I don't think so in this case. I think Ramiz Brahimaj has, I think Puna, has underperformed, and that's not necessarily his fault. He had a lot of expectation, whereas Brahimaj did not have a lot of expectation, right? So the stage was set for him to overperform. And if you look at their opponents, it kind of makes sense because the guy who overperformed also didn't face his strongest competition, right? Whereas the guy who's underperformed has kind of faced a lot of tough competition right out of the gate, right? And we have seen him struggle in some third rounds, but I will say he's won every decision minus getting body kicked to death by Brendan Allen, which was a big step up right out of the gate, right? Excusable, fine. Note the body work. And was right after that against Nick Maximov, which was terrible decision. And the only reason why Puna even let it be that close and looked as bad as he did is because he actually got injured in that fight. His knee blew out, and he was still able to do the splits and defend takedowns, and should have won on damage if we're keeping that same energy of criteria. So I don't know if we want to count that. And Maximov was later found out. I just faded the crap out of him after that and just made my money back. But I will say,
remember when people thought Maximov was going to be a thing?
Oh Jesus, that was ridiculous. And part of it was that bullshit decision, So I always gotta throw out that caveat for the audience, right, Mike? But yeah, and two, not just my bias here or whatever of Puna being able to show good takedown defense even when injured, which will come in handy against a rear naked choke artist like Brahimaj. Now Brahimaj's overachieved. He's shown he can fight past round one. He's shown he's got pop on his hands, right? Decent boxing. He'll throw an occasional head kick, but he is a head hunter. And with Puna, you got to go to his body, man. Even though I defended his cardio a bit, to your point, Mike, that's the weak spot, right? That's why Brandon Allen was able to beat him in the one decision that he actually did lose, right? Yep. And I didn't see any of that body work from Brahimaj. So obviously I'm biased picking my guy Puna, but even when I'm biased, I can still show more work than and some of the folks on the streets. Not trying to throw shade. I'm just saying, even when I'm biased, folks, I can pick against, or when I pick for, I will still show my work either way. So we got Puna. Let's move on. Not a lot of meat on the bone, though, so I am my bias, so I'll probably be staying away. Knock the last of these fast. We got Jean-Paul Noyani versus Phil Rowe. Lebos Noyani, apologies if I'm brutalizing that name, minus 205 coming off the Contender Series, getting the favorite treatment. Phil Rowe, plus 175, getting the underdog treatment. Now, this could be under 2.5 rounds, by the way, minus 140, over 2.5 rounds, plus 120. he is a switch stance fighter, Jean-Paul Lesbiani, but he does mainly fight from southpaw. And Rowe is 0-1 against southpaws for whatever that's worth. However, it's not exactly a short notice spot for Rowe. He's had about 5 weeks or so to prepare, 4 to 5 weeks. And kind of like other fighters like Josiah Harrell, by the way, these guys were getting ready. If you look at their Instagram posts, they were in shape asking for a fight before the fight even got booked, which is something you got to look for too, right? And yeah, basically, I like Phil Rowe in this spot, man. Not just your classic contender, this classic contender series fade spot, right? Where they overvalue him as a favorite when they haven't fought anybody coming off the contender series, Mike, and they throw him with a veteran who maybe not the best record, maybe not the most consistent fighter. All those things true about Phil Rowe, but he's very proven and he's very dangerous in all phases, on the feet, on the floor, distance, clinch, and even on his back, right? He can finish the fight from all those areas. But I believe I'm taking the heat here too much, Mike. Let me throw it to you, see what you think before I go any further here.
No, I'm actually shocked, bro, because I'm in agreement with you. I didn't think you were going with Rowe, and I am as well. I'm going with Rowe.
Yes.
And the reason being is when you first start off breaking down a fight, like you got to see like what uphill battles do these fighters have? Do they have uphill battles? Is a terrible matchup for them? And when you look at, I'm going to just call him Labos to make it easier. He's very small for the division. Like he's not a big kid for the division. He's going to be at a 7 reach disadvantage in this fight. Rowe is a long fighter. Rowe's actually big for the division. A lot of experience. Yeah, sure, he could be taken down. He's been grounded plenty of times, but he does have a good get-up game. He does have a sneaky grappling game, but it's more about his length here. Like it's going to be Lebos is going to have to figure that out. How do I get inside on him? How do I even get in on his hips if I want to take him down? And the bigger cage is going to allow Rowe to kind of stand in on the outside and kind of, if he wants to utilize his jab and chew him up and use some kicks, because he does utilize kicks well, his veteran savvy in there, like it's very, very, very live in this spot. I feel Rowe is very, very live in this spot. For that reason alone, just the riddle that Lebos has a 15-minute equation to solve, and it's very solvable. It's not like Philip Rowe is some world beater. It's still a riddle. Size is a riddle you do have to solve. So give me Rowe here. I do like Rowe in this spot.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for the love there in the chat, Quinn Pench. I love you too. No, that's great. Yeah, I'm on Phil Rowe here. And so Mike, when I was watching tape, I didn't do a grading the winners because I must have been off that week or whatever. I'm like, crap, I don't got any notes on Lesbiani. I got to go back. And I would still go through the tape anyways. Don't get me wrong, but I like having my notes. But I went through backwards. So I watched his first fight, even though he won. I'm like, this guy goes to his back way too much against a tall, good ground guy. He's going to get ground and pounded to shit, especially like a guy like possibly Phil Rowe, right? So I go back to the last loss I can go to, not his loss to a former 145er, by the way, where he got KO'd straight up against Spike Carlisle. It didn't have that footage on the old Fight Pass, right? But they do have his Jacobe Jones fight, which was he's a decent regional fighter, comes out of the Factory X camp, Mark Montoya, right? But that fight, when I went back to watch it, Mike, sure enough, how'd he lose? Going to his back too much and just getting ground and pounded out. Now he hasn't lost since he moved up to welterweight, but he hasn't really fought many guys either. And he is more of a round one guy, whereas Phil Rowe, especially when you look at his finishes and his propensity to drop round one, he's more of a builder, 2 and 3, right? We look for those angles, Mike. We just talked about those angles. And, and when Lesbiani did go to decision, it was at welterweight, Mike, and it was a guy who was not as tall as Phil Rowe, not as long, but he was 6'3". And guess what? It went to decision because he had a problem. He was stuck on the outside. He was able to outpoint him after getting his ass kicked in round 1. The guy didn't have much depth on the ground or a gas tank. So he basically was able to survive round 1 and just outpoint him from the outside. The guy didn't have much of a game. That's not a good sign. Neither of those things against a guy like Phil Rowe.
Yeah, and another thing is, one thing he does look for, if you watch some of his fights, like he does have like these little chippy leg kicks, right? But he's doing it to set up a high kick because he does have but that's not going to work on a guy like Rowe. He's going to be too out of range for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're ultimately taking away one of his weapons where he does like to set up that high kick, and it's not going to be there for him.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I think it's a good spot. I think it's a good spot for Rowe.
Yeah, and at plus 175, I took Rowe at 1.25 units, so a unit and a quarter I threw in him, Mike. And if he hits, that'll cover a parlay, right? That'll cover one of the parlays if one of those don't hit. That's kind of my reasoning behind it. Money is going down on him. I will say this, you do whatever you want, but if he gets down to like plus 150, at that point, maybe hold off and look to bet. You'll still have I think you'll still have a chance to bet him live, So I think this could be a live betting spot too as well. Just for the folks out there, they don't feel that confident. They want to wait to see if Phil Rowe can get past that first round. Then you fire on him for, you'll probably get the same price or better. So let's move on to knock out these last two. Yair Delvalle versus Jordan Levitt. Delvalle is a big parlay piece for a lot of people this weekend, and the line shows -400. Come back on Jordan Levitt +330, over 1.5 rounds -150, under 1.5 +130. I will say Delvalle 0-0 against UFC level lefties there. And as I pull up Levitt's stats, Mike, what do you got for this fight?
This to me is just, listen, he's fun. Jordan Levitt's fun. He's, the one thing about him is he needs the fight needs to unfold exactly the way it needs to unfold for him to win. And that's basically ending up on the ground, allowing him to get his hips loose, allowing him to, go for those crazy leg locks. He's got that very like Ryan Hall type style when he's on the ground. And that's all fine and great. But at the end of the day, like, the fights do start on the feet. He's not really a bully. He's not really a good striker. This is Delvalle's fight to win. Like, I mean, you just got to know, like, there is a cautionary tale when you do hit the ground with someone like Levitt, because he is slippery. He is sneaky. He does have some things that he does. He is a good grappler. I'm not going to take, but it's got to be, the grappling situations have to be kind of wild for him. He's not a guy who's going to be, in top control and looking to position for submission. They got to kind of be in loud scrambles for him to have success. And listen, he can have that success, but to me, he's just not explosive enough. He's not athletic enough. He's really too well read at this point. Like, it's you kind of know what he's going to do. So I think this is a major uphill battle for him. I think Delvalle's fight to win here.
Completely agree. I'm a fan of Levitt. He's trained under my coach Neal Melanson before, but he is 0-2 against UFC level southpaws to finish up that stat. And to Mike's point, Delvalle, you got to worry because he will bully himself right into the positions that Jordan Levitt will be live. But at the same time, I think he ultimately big brothers him. So yeah, the pick is Delvalle here. Let's go to the lastly but not leastly. We're finishing at the wire here. Carly Judice, big favorite over Juliana Miller. I'm a fan of the weird white girls. Y'all know me, but I don't disagree with those odds for Killer Miller. +550 as an underdog for Juliana. Carly Judice -750, under 2.5 rounds, -163, over 2.5 rounds, +145. Judice is a southpaw. Killer Miller is 2-1 against UFC level lefties, beating like likes of Brogan Walker. She lost to Veronica Hardy and so forth there. But I like Judice here. I will shout out, by the way, again, to shout my analysis, Mike. Last time Judice fought, would I get the round 3 stoppage? And I paired it with Crute Sub for +3,400. Proof on the long shot show. Shout out to my guys over there at Home of Fight. And thanks to the analysis for that cash. That was nice. So I always love Judice for that. But betting and bullshit bias aside, she is actually a legit southpaw striker. I like what I see. The grappling is something that, you want to see tested at a higher level. I don't think that Juliana Miller will quite test that. So I'm going to go with Judice here. And I took the under. I paired it with Edwards, Mike, for +107 for 2 units. What do you got for this fight?
I think the rightful favorite is Judice, but I think this line is insane. I mean, I think it's absolutely insane. I mean, listen, I'm not a fan of Juliana Miller. I don't think she's that good, but at the end of the day, she is tough. Like, she is a tough kid. You know what I mean? The thing that makes me laugh about this fight is that she posted a video about her, being so insulted that she's a +500 or this, that, and people are actually buying into it, which is crazy. Like, oh, bro, she saw it. She's pissed. She's saying fuck you to everybody. Like, now she's going to come out. She's like, if you guys really believe that, then come call me. I'm going to fucking sell you a bridge tomorrow. You still need skill. I don't care how pissed you get. I don't care how insulted you get. You still need skill. And Judice is just a better fighter. But to say that she's a -750 better, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know. Like, Juliana Miller, like you said, she's got to be tested on the ground. Juliana Miller is not that good on the ground, but she's serviceable on the ground. She is tough. She's not, she's not a girl who's just going to kind of buckle and fold. She's going to at least fight. You know what I mean? So, and anything can happen in a fight. So I do like Judice here. I think she absolutely wins this fight, probably in spectacular fashion, maybe inside the distance, maybe 30-27. I don't know, but I wouldn't go near that those odds with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't tie it into a par, nothing, zero. It's just, the end of the day, it's
Sure.
I call these the cliffhanger fights. The first fight of the night, it's usually guys that are or girls that have 3 losses. They're getting ready to fall off the roster, or you're
Right.
still just kind of trying to prove yourself. So when you're
Sure.
the first fight of the night, you shouldn't bank any real soul confidence on it. So I'm picking Giudice here. I think she wins. I'm tending to say that the fight probably goes to the cards on my end, and maybe a 30-27, but I have no interest in this fight at all from a with my money.
Ooh, I hope it doesn't go to the cards for my end, but to see more on my end as we're 30 seconds away from the 1:30 mark, just want to make sure I get the plugs in. I always never plug my stuff, so I want to make sure we get both of us in. At Dan Tom MMA at Substack, at Dan Tom MMA on all social platforms. If you want to find what I end up locking in, we're going to recap, go through dogs. Mike can be found at themadlabmma.com. At Mad Lab MMA. You don't want to miss any of his stuff. He puts out his pre-fight plays and his transparency reports after. He fills you with all the great stuff.
Did DT drop off?
I'm still here.
Yeah, you're.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to get that in real quick. But yeah, I hope it doesn't go to the cards. That being said, it is a possibility. So part of my round robin strategy here is I'm trying to decide between Giudice round 3 in case she does get the finish in round 3, like I've called previously, and we just miss the undermark for it, right? At least we'll still hit that. Or what I think I'll do instead, since round 3 alone, even at nerfed odds, which I expect it to be, I can still sprinkle on that alone for some coverage or some bonus, right? And maybe in the round robin instead, put a split decision prop, right? Because even though Giudice should win this, and even though we don't agree with minus 700, she should win it fairly clearly. At the same time, you could argue that maybe something gone wrong if we went to the cards. There was more grappling than she would have preferred, because I just see Juliana Miller kind of, looking like a punching bag if she can't get this to the ground. And maybe you get one of those sympathy stoppages because the ref doesn't want to see a girl take damage, or something. I don't know. But yeah, that could happen. So I'm going to definitely put a split prop probably as hopefully, some insurance possibly for that. But all right, before we recap the card top to bottom, Mike, we got to guess our guy Dayton's dog of the week. We got to get our dog of the week, our best bet. And while we're cooking that up really quickly as we close out here, it will be really easy for our head-to-head. Now, you don't have to owe me the shot this week, Mike. I think we had, what was the head-to-head? I want to say I got lucky, but apparently Vic Lachio.
No, you didn't. I thought you, because there was 1 second left, but apparently the judges had the cards going that way anyway.
Yeah, apparently. I still
I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I don't agree with those cards.
I didn't agree on live watch either. Maybe I'll change my mind if I rewatch it. So for what it's worth, I feel very lucky to have cashed that. Unfortunately, even though I had the Vic Lach sub in my round robin, nothing else seemed to have hit. So it's just like, come on, man. Come on.
What a wet, bro. Didn't that remind you of Paul Craig and Ankalaev?
It reminded me of, did you see my post of Martin Kampmann versus Thiago Alves?
Oh, yeah. That's another one.
It wasn't at the buzzer beater, which was your call, by the way. Good reference there, Ankalaev Craig. But it was a needless guillotine where Thiago Alves was up, 30 seconds left. He shoots, and Kampmann gets him in the same side guillotine, one arm in, and everything.
Bro,
but
how do you not? I just, he would have lost anyway, obviously on the cards. But like, how do you fucking not just hold out? Like,
dude, what a brain fart moment. That's got to get a record. Some kind of award from our heavy hands guys over there. But this card, Mike, we're only head-to-head on one pick, so it's kind of decided for us, which is Delija Spivac, right? That's the only fight we're actually head-to-head on this card, surprisingly. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We'll see. It could be a really good night or a really bad night, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you're going to have to be taking...
do you want to do a head-to-head on that? I guess.
We don't have to.
Yeah, we'll do it. It's for fun. We'll do it. It's the only one we're head-to-head. We'll just do it.
Yeah,
but here's the thing: we got to do Dayton's dog of the week, and then we got to pick our dog. We have to pick our. Well, are we doing a dog of the week this week? What are we doing?
I have one I could pitch. I don't know if you like it. My first pick would be Roe. I know we agreed on the Hawaiians from Extreme Couture, but I'm too biased to put my chest out on those, and those are tough.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the reason why I think we should do Roe, because a lot of these content providers, and I'm not going to say names, but they do like these dogs. They pick their dogs and they're like plus 105. And I'm like,
yes,
what
that
kind of
too,
dog
that
is that?
too.
Plus
Absolutely,
105,
yes,
plus 110, plus 100.
Right.
So
yes.
we can easily do that, but let's do a significant dog. We'll take a shot.
I agree, 100%. Let's go row for our dog. You said Dayton's dog of the week, so
no, I don't. He didn't tell me, but I'm assuming it's going to be Juliana Miller.
See, I would say too, but again, weird white girls. That's my demo, which is funny because I don't know what demo I belong to as a Asian dude, but I think Dayton, though, if we're looking at his, if we're looking at his race demographic, I think he likes the more exotic types, So I don't know if Miller fits that. So I'm going to go against Miller.
Maybe it's Cornolle.
I'm gonna say that he's with us on row. I'm gonna take a shot on row. What is it, Dayton? What is it, Dayton? Oh, it is Miller. He's in the weird white girl club. Dayton, welcome, buddy. Welcome. Come here. It's like Goodfellas. You pop your chair. Yeah, come here. It's great.
Bro, if Dayton hits that, we have to have like a celebration.
We have to have a celebration, and then
if Dayton hit that, here, we got to be fair. Yes. If Dayton hits that, it's got to count. It's got to count as 2 dogs.
Yeah, and I will take a shot.
I'll do a shot for that one.
Yeah. We got to give.
And you get 2 points for that, Dayton.
Yes, Dayton. Yeah, 100 balls.
I don't think I've had one of these like the dogs like one of these girls that actually hit yet. I think McConaughey and like
McConaughey was your biggest dog so far.
Yeah, I'm like 3 and 7 right now.
Dayton was probably watching film, like sitting there in his bed, pink panties.
Oh my gosh, she does have an OnlyFans, Dayton, if you're interested.
Does she really?
I believe so.
What the Let me fact check that.
Listen, you're gonna always see. That's why I do the Instagram. The Instagram studies. You get to see where they're training, what they're eating, and if it's girls, well,
All right. So listen, we got our dog of the week. Who is going to be our lock
best bet
of the week?
Yeah. That's a harder one. Do we go with do we cheap out on this one and say Edwards as a parlay piece? Do we go with an under in the Spivac Delija or Neal versus Medic fights, which as a best bet? Other than
listen, if you want to, I don't want to be that guy like minus 300 lock of the week. I don't want to do that. Do you want to take a shot on the value of Michel Pereira?
Oh, that's such a volatile fucking stay away.
It's very volatile. But how corny do we look being like Edwards minus 320?
I know. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Unless you want to do a prop.
I would rather do I would honestly rather feel better about an under, which says a lot for me.
So how about the under in the Medic and Neal fight?
I feel like that was where we were both aligned and strongestly aligned, as I make up a word there, right?
And what is the odds on that? It's under 2, under 1.5 is minus 195.
Oh, it went up a little bit. It was minus 180 earlier. You can probably find it for a little better than that. But yeah. I'd rather do that than a minus 300. But let me see what the lines are available for those unders. Yeah, some are over 2-1, some are minus 180 still, like over at Betway. But
so you think so you're saying you like the under in the Spivac and Delija fight under 1.5?
I feel like it's just as likely, just as volatile, except it's more playable at minus 135.
Okay, let's do that. Let's be realistic. I mean, best bet doesn't always mean the lock. It also means like for the value.
I just played it straight, minus 132 over at Schmetch Munch Mine. You guys want to, anyone wants to sponsor the show, any betting houses, so I don't have to do my Schmetch and all that annoying stuff. But yeah, Schmetch Munch Mine has a nice price for that if you guys like it. Where is Cust? I know Cust is the man.
They're never going to grant me that. They're never going to grant me my wish ever. Ever.
Gotta get Cust on the show. And I don't blame you for Fluffy. I feel pretty strongly about Fluffy, despite my biases being in the opposite corner, Dirty Reg. So, and I am on him. I am putting my money where my mouth is there. But yeah,
I'm going to say my lock. I'm going to say my lock though. My lock, like minus the odds.
Yes,
is Joselyne Edwards, dude.
I like that too. And you'll probably get juicy odds for round 2 because Cornolle has never been finished. But because she's never been finished, I wouldn't get too cute. I would just, make sure you have money line exposure if you like Edwards. That's it. All right, let's recap from top to bottom. We're both taking Anthony Fluffy Hernandez over Sean Strickland. We're both taking Geoff Neal over Uros Medic. We're both taking. Oh, no. We're actually head to head on this one. Hey, should we go head to head on this one? Do you have Costa, right? Or do you have Ige?
You have Ige?
Yeah, I have Ige.
Oh, let's do a head to head on that one. That's better.
Yeah, because I just won, and that way I get the underdog, and you get that's fair. That is better. So we'll do that. I have Ige, and Mike has Costa. We're also split. Mike has Spivac. I have Delija. But I like the under in that fight. That'll be our bet this week. We just said we're both taking Smith over Harrell, but man, it's dog or pass. Harrell's super live. Again, took a little sprinkle off him. Maybe some 2-3 rounds pre-flop. We're both taking Michel Pereira, Mike Consigliere, Michel over Reese. We're both taking Chitty Chitty Bang Bang over Carlos Leal. We're both taking Osbourne over Idris Alba. We're both taking Coria over Luis Gurule, another quiet money line value, perhaps if you're a parlay player. Both taking Edwards over Cornolle. Both taking Punahele over Brahimaj. Both taking Phil Rowe. He's our dog of the week, baby, over Lebos Noyani. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Taking Delija over Levitt. And then lastly but not least, we're taking Judice over Miller. Although Dayton's dog of the week is Juliana Miller. All right.
So last thing I want to do every show before we end.
Yeah.
We both have to. I don't know why he just popped in my head, but then it just gave me a reason to do this segment. The last thing we're going to do is we have to talk. We have to name just the name of a fighter that everybody probably forgot.
Drew McFedries.
All right, that's yours?
Mike Goldberg. Yeah, go ahead.
Mine is David the Crow Loazo.
Oh, Loazo. David Loazo.
Right? Remember him?
That's awesome. Yeah.
I don't know why he just popped in my head, bro. David Loazo.
Yeah.
So every episode we have to do that. We have to just throw a name out. You have to say it, I have to say it, and then that's it. It's done.
I love how we both went with old school UFC middleweights. The UFC matchmakers will be proud of us, Mike. All right, Dayton, you're the man, dude. Thank you, guys. Sorry, went maybe 10 minutes over our target 1.5 hour time, but we've had some tight shows for you recently. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. It was another big card packed with stats and analysis. Hopefully you can take all that, make it into your own little ball, and produce some winners. Mike, where can they find you?
You go to the madlabmma.com. We actually just launched our first MMA fantasy. It's going to be the I could just tell by I can't believe the outcome that we had on it, but it's definitely going to be the gold standard for MMA season-long fantasy, but it's not season-long. We're running them in 8-week increments where you get a trophy, you go on the Wall of Fame, it's encrypted with your name. Obviously, you have to be a member to do that. We cover boxing. We have a boxing fight this weekend. Ryan Garcia is taking on Mario Barrios. Good fight. Two guys with attitude. So you can find me at the madlabmma.com, or you find me at what's my handle? Madlabmma on X. And yeah, man, let's win some money.
All right. At Dan Tom MMA on all social platforms, at Dan Tom MMA. On Substack for my fluid thoughts, I post those a couple days before the event, at least a day before it gets locked in with all the round robins and fun stuff. You can find me there on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Dan Tom MMA. Good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck
and your cock.